And we're live.
Live and alive, down under. Is it a negative to be called down under?
No.
That's a point of pride?
I think it's just a thing. Like it's not. We're indifferent to it.
You know, my saddest thing is, and we haven't even done an intro yet, we just jumped right in. My saddest thing is my entire life in the Northern Hemisphere, it's you come to Australia and the toilet flushes the other way. All the toilets go straight down the middle. The sinks go straight down the middle. I'm like, I'm looking for one old school toilet where everything goes in swirls so I can see it the other direction.
No, it doesn't
didn't happen last time. It didn't happen this time. Didn't happen in New Zealand. Didn't happen in Singapore. I do look and I try.
Yeah, here it's super weird. We see like The Simpsons is a good episode where there's this huge deal about making the water go the right way, but here actually no, it just goes down.
Just straight down. Everybody, welcome to Teams Fridays. I'm Michael Tressler, and with me is Lee Edgerton from Microsoft. Hi, Lee.
Hey, Michael. How are you?
And we're in Sydney, Australia. So I've made the road trip halfway around the globe. Martin isn't with us because time zones, and he couldn't get a flight. So that's why we're here.
Oh, well, he's missing out.
Yep. So I don't know if you know who I am, but it doesn't matter. We care about Lee. Lee, who is it? What you do? And also, look at this.
Oh,
look at these guys.
Service with a smile. Service with a smile. James Squire Lashes.
Yeah,
James Squire Lashes Premium Pale Ale, the preferred pale ale for Teams Fridays in Sydney. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me, Michael. So yeah, I'm Lee Edgerton, and God, what am I today? Sorry, I have trouble. I've got a really generic title, but no, I'm Alliance Manager for the Teams Room business in Asia.
So what does Alliance Manager mean?
I manage the relationships between, the Microsoft Teams Rooms hardware partners.
Okay, so someone like us.
Someone like Jabra, that's right. And all across the Asia region. So I'm helping them connecting to the right people at Microsoft, delivering the information they need, coming to their events to speak, things like that.
And how long have you been doing that?
2 years, actually. Or 2 years almost.
So you started after I left Microsoft? I mean, not at Microsoft, but I left Microsoft a year and a half ago.
Microsoft.
Because I knew you from well before. I knew Lee Edgerton well before.
I started 2016 at Microsoft, so I've been a Windows guy for a long time.
Like Teams Rooms Windows or
no,
Windows?
Like Windows marketing, Windows device marketing, and then it was into sales, and I was managing partners and everything like that. But
so how did you? So let's talk about this. You start at Windows. I told you it was going to be a conversation. You start in the Windows world. Welcome to Microsoft. Go Windows. Mm-hmm. And then you said you transferred to sales.
Yes.
And then how do you go from sales to Teams Rooms devices? Or is it Teams Rooms device or Teams devices all up?
Teams Rooms devices.
Teams Rooms devices. So how do you make that jump?
So I was in sales and I managed like distributors and resellers and OEMs. I managed partners like Acer and Asus, etc. And I did almost everything that I could in that world. Okay. So then I decided, what's the next step going to be?
So after 2 or 3 years, it's like...
And I'm seeing Teams Rooms explode internally from a devices. Like that's the common denominator there. I went from a hardware business to another hardware business.
Okay.
But in a business that's growing like exponentially at this point.
So you've only been in the Teams Rooms world for 2 years? Because it seems like I've known your name for much longer.
It's like much longer time, but no.
Because I remember when I came last year, I'm like, Lee Edgerton. I'm like, oh my God, I get a chance to meet Lee.
Yeah.
Apparently you made such an impact in the first 6 months, or the first year or whatever, when I got here last year, that good for you.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm glad what I'm doing is working.
And how's Teams Rooms going? Has it hit it? Are the conference rooms full? Are we done? Are we full?
Not by a long shot.
I hope not. We got things to sell.
We are. Sorry, for me, it's a weird business, right? Because I come from Windows devices, where it is like cutthroat for the margin, cutthroat for growth. It is like a battleground out there. And then I come to Teams Rooms, and the opportunity seems like it's total greenfields for us. Everything's white space. I've got partners who are working with other partners together. And it's shocking. It's like this like you say device community, but it literally is that. It's there is so much to it.
Yeah, I think it's community. You saw me present today, and at no point did I say negative against our ostensibly competitors. Friends, I always reference them to friends in the community, our friends at the other companies. because they do good things. And also, I've been in this industry now 5 years in the Teams devices world. I go to these events and they're friends. Like we'll go have a beer afterwards. Just because I switched from a Microsoft hat to a Jabra hat doesn't mean you're suddenly a bad person.
Absolutely.
Or maybe I'm the bad person. Maybe I'm the bad one. But yeah, so I and also then in the MVP community, and even not the MVPs, just there's always been, and it's for me, this is before your time, but from Link on, there's been this very tight community, very willing to share. So that goes through Link, Skype, and now into the Teams world. That's all moved. A lot of the same people. Some people have moved on. Some people have joined in. So probably because that's tighter than Windows. Because in the Windows, yes, there are certain visionaries and people on the Windows side, but it is so huge that it's tight. It's hard to have a tighter knit community. If you're focusing on not just Teams, but conference room things.
No, I agreed. And I think it was the Sydney, there's a Sydney Teams user group. Fantastic group. And that was the first shock to the system coming into this role.
Right.
I walk in and there are like, everyone there is basically a partner and they're all competing partners.
Correct.
And they're all there to learn, to share information and everything. I loved it. Refreshing. I loved it.
Yes. Now, again, and a lot of us in that community aren't in sales. So it's not this competitive, like I'm trying to steal from your, I'm trying to steal your business.
Yeah.
It's more like, hey, you know, what have you run into? What are the things say? Or even, it always feels a little weird wearing a Jabra shirt, going into like the poly booth, going, show me what you have new. And it's not like I'm doing a competitive assessment. So I really want to do one, I'll buy one, take it at home and tear it down, right? Figure it out. I just want to see what you guys are working on, what's cool, what's exciting, just from an industry knowledge thing.
So cool.
I can speak for Jabra. There are people who do the competitive work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not that.
No. Sorry, I will clarify. Absolutely, there are partners going up against other partners for large deals. But no, beyond that, you put that aside, as a community, very collaborative.
Yep. So what's been the exciting things lately in Teams rooms? There's a lot of stuff coming out, all kinds of things, both niche.
Yeah, wow.
The facial recognition thing is coming out. That's kind of a little niche, and then some bigger things like how do we leverage Copilot in a conference room? So what are some of the things in the last 6 months or publicly announced things that you're excited about?
I think it's that time to Copilot, to be honest. When I got a chance to start using things like Intelligent Recap, that was game-changing for me, and that's really just an extension to recorded meetings, basically, right?
Correct.
And it was a fantastic addition to get summaries and notes and all that sort of stuff, AI-generated goodness out of Teams. But then it's like, how does that come into the meeting room? And now I'm in the Teams room business. It's super interesting how that's happening. You now realize that there is this opportunity of, well, if the meeting room isn't set up right, or the meeting room doesn't have the right hardware or technology in it, that whole Copilot, the promise that Copilot's making, kind of falls over in the meeting room.
It gets limited at least. It's limited.
Exactly.
And it's also probably from the Windows side interesting to see the unique challenges that a conference room offers. Because in the Windows world, roughly everybody has a laptop or a PC or a server, and you sign into it with your credentials and your Active Directory and all this, and it's one person. And now you walk in, it's like, how do we identify people walking into a room, both visually or from their voice? How do we handle, and then, most of the time, hopefully everybody has a good certified headset.
Yes.
Or you're working at home in a quiet environment. But that's a single person solution. So we can solve for that because we know who is signed in.
Yes. Yeah.
Conference room, people are just walking in, and we need to give a similar end result as if you had walked into the room and signed in.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, that was the moment. I did my first meeting. I knew that I had Intelligent Recap, so I made sure I recorded and transcribed. We walk in, we had a 3-hour planning session.
Nice.
Did
at least some of these come through?
No, that was later. But, we walked out of the room and I looked at my notes and I'm like, this is great, but then you see that there is no individual attribution in there. And that was the
because so the recap would roughly say, hey, there was discussion about this.
Exactly.
It was decided on this. Points were raised about this, but who decided? Who raised the points?
Exactly.
Who did that? And ultimately, and really, okay, if we all agree, it doesn't matter who did that, but at the end, the takeaways.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who's going to take the next step on this angle? Or the example I always give is donuts. Who's going to buy the donuts? Who's going to put the order in?
Yes.
Who's going to decide how many jelly versus yeast? Those are the room decided. Well, the room decided to pick up the donuts. Well, I'm not going to pick them up. You're not going to pick them up. We come to the next meeting. Nobody's got the donuts. So having that name is useful. Also, we need donuts.
Even as simple as like the actions had names, but
Yes.
there wasn't. That was like it was just text. There wasn't any rich connection to that individual. It didn't show up in their recap, like that sort of stuff.
And then the stuff that we showed in the demo today, and people wanted to see it. There's those. It shows the meeting, and then little, like a horse race track, and colors of when, and just little notifications of when someone spoke. And so the example I always give is, we're in a meeting. My boss is presenting. Other bosses are presenting, but I can't attend. I only care what my boss had to say. So let me fast forward. Instead of the old school day, fast forward, listen for a minute, fast forward, listen for a minute, fast forward, oh crap, rewind. You just go click. That's when his dialogue, given his summary started. And that is awesome. And then even the automatic topics.
Yes.
So even if it is not the boss, I just want to hear my boss. Okay, they talked about sales, forecasts, they talked about inventory, and then they talked about the marketing of that. I just want to skip to the marketing section.
Yes.
And you just skip to the marketing, even though it was an intense conversation, so you don't know when it started because little dots are all over the place on the grid. You can just jump to, I'm just interested in the marketing part.
Yep. I mean, even I love the mentions. So I'm on a global team, and I miss a lot of meetings. There's meetings that are held when I'm asleep or whatever, and I love being able to just duck in. Was I mentioned?
Did they talk about me? I'm important. Am I important?
Was I mentioned? Was there any actions? For me, it sounds selfish, but it ends up that it's that's where the value is for me, because sometimes I was mentioned in meetings before, but I'd have to watch the whole meeting to find out, to see, well, do I have an action, or did I cause a problem? Did I do something wrong? So yeah, that it's always good to be able to just click, and it takes me straight to the part in the video where I was. You can scrub back and forth to maybe get more context or whatever. Yeah.
So on the Teams room side, like many technologies, like right now, Copilot's taking off, but at some point it's going to plateau until the next breakthrough or the next Microsoft. Like, hey, it just takes time to wire this into our entire 8,000 products we have. So there'll be a takeoff and a plateau, then more wiring happens, another takeoff. I had the feeling Teams Rooms was kind of in a plateau until about 4 or 5 months ago. Like there were new features coming out, but it's like, like 4K support for HDMI ingest. Cool, but that's not a game changer. Are you also do you feel like me that we're, like this summer is gonna be the summer of a next major jump up of cool things and features in Teams Rooms that will make, and ultimately we're doing all of this so that the remote people have a better experience in meetings?
It's funny you mention that, because it feels like all the new stuff that's coming out, it's like, oh yeah, it's great, but you have to be in another room to see it.
Correct.
You have to be at home to see it. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. There is a lot coming. I mean, I'm not privy to stuff coming down the pipe.
Neither.
But the idea is that there's so much new stuff coming, and particularly, I mean, I'd hate to keep coming back to Copilot on this, but it feels like that's driving a lot of this change in the meeting room. There's a lot of things that need to be sort of delivered and landed to make that the best it can be for customers. So yeah, I think I absolutely agree. I don't necessarily agree with you on the past, like saying that it had plateaued. I felt like that it's just been unlimited. Like, I don't want to say unlimited opportunity, but it just feels like when you're talking about a business that's almost doubling like every year. I was I was under the impression that it was like we were at capacity for how much we could deploy.
No, we're at like, what, 20% tops?
That's what I mean.
So
we are,
a potential 80%.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, so there's so much opportunity out there. But no, I think this will like even harder inflection.
And are you responsible then for the alliances for Asia Pacific or just Australia?
Asia Pacific. So, I'm in Australia, ANZ, but I also cover India, Japan, Southeast Asia, Korea, and Greater China.
And how is it taking off in some of those countries? Like, is there a big difference? Is it like completely different in different areas?
Completely different.
Completely different. So some areas are mature and some are still learning what Teams Rooms is and how to leverage it? Or?
I think that we've got a base level of knowledge across almost all countries in Asia. But it's varying levels of readiness and adoption, right? If you look at ANZ, it's one of the most penetrated markets in the world, and even that, it's still
30%, right? More penetrated than the 20%,
right?
but still.
So it's a very highly penetrated market in ANZ. Really get it here, and then you look at a market like Japan, which is also highly penetrated for things like Microsoft 365 and Teams. But Teams rooms, it's a totally different kettle of fish.
Do you think that's cultural, or do you think it's just they've not put priorities on meetings?
I think it is a bit like there's a cultural thing, particularly a way that they've adopted on-premise and Japanese-made technology in Japan. And so moving them to a cloud-based or moving them to another brand, there's sort of difficulties there, but there's huge opportunity in that market, right? And then India is like on the other end of the spectrum. Like they are adopting technology as fast as we can build it, but it is like the sorts of customers that you're going after is so broad, right? You've got your large multinationals that are in there, but then also local Indian enterprises as well that you're trying to go after. So yeah, it's very different. And then don't get me started on ASEAN. ASEAN is like 15 countries that are all completely different with different challenges.
So how do you do your job with all the different languages? What tools do you use, or you don't? I don't. I just stay in the English-speaking ones.
Yeah,
that's why Japan is struggling.
Yeah, we're very dependent on local speakers, right? I think that's a critical part of the job. So for me, I do what I can in those markets, but it's tough. It's tough to address a lot of those markets, even get up and talk on stage at something,
Correct.
knowing that you need to be able to speak Thai, or need to speak Vietnamese, or need to speak Japanese.
Yeah, my tour, and Marcelo could tie into it, is a lot was done on can we speak English in these countries? Japan was decided no. Even though I'm sure their understanding of English is good, it's just not going to work. And other countries it will work. So Singapore, not that these are former British colonies, but Singapore, India, Philippines was at some point, some level, I don't know my history, but America was involved.
Yes.
They were a territory of some sort for like 10 years post World War II or something. And so those are kind of the English ones. Those are the ones I'm heading to. Yep. But you don't have that. You don't get to pick and choose like I get. Well, like Marcelo got to for me.
No, thankfully we've got really strong teams locally. I mean, Microsoft is far-reaching, and so there's lots of local teams that can support those countries. But yeah, from me personally, I think I have to sort of pick and choose how to approach each of those.
And how often do you travel? Because Asia's big.
It's up and down. Look, I think the answer is always not enough, regardless of how often I travel.
The answer is I use Teams rooms and travel virtually. We use the technology.
Right? Yeah, that's exactly right. The answer is that we use a lot of teams to fill those gaps. But no, I try to get out there as much as possible because they find it so valuable having that sort of attention.
On the team side, because at Microsoft you got all the licenses, are you using the live translation inside Teams?
Yes. So one thing that we are trying to adopt more and more is an opening slide to any presentations that we do that gives the basic details of how to turn on
live translation,
etc. And it's not a perfect replacement for a local speaker, but it is better than not understanding the English presentation at all.
It's kind of like watching a foreign movie at that point. You don't really understand the words, but you can read along.
Yeah, so we are really trying to it's really change management for us. It's doing things a little bit differently, but we are trying to just be more sensitive to that.
And let's see, one last good question. I don't have a good last one. One last good question. Teams Premium. I don't know. Anything else you want to say? Anybody? Oh, how do I find a newsletter that keeps me up to date on like Teams rooms in Asia? Is there such a thing?
I put one out myself.
What? Who knew?
Who knew? It is, I've named it the Tram, but it's the Teams Rooms Asia Monthly.
Okay.
And you can go to aka.ms/tram.
You got the aka.ms?
I got the aka, yeah.
Nice.
So easy.
When you have an aka.ms, it's legit.
Yeah.
So like the Teams Devices AMA, when I was at Microsoft, I made aka.ms MTD AMA. That's legit. It's now official.
Locked in. Yep, locked in.
Yeah. So, well, thanks a lot, Lee. Thanks for spending time. Thanks for, this is technically a job event, but we're not doing that here. But thanks for your time. Thanks for volunteering to be here.
Awesome.
And
thanks, Michael.
I can't wait for my next trip to Australia and to see you again.
Can't wait to have you back. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers.